Hello and welcome to post-match reaction to the Springboks versus the British and Irish Lions and the second test. The Springboks coming out on top 27-9 with a dominant second half in that one. In the first half, though, we had a couple of yellow cards and no doubt some things that we discussed about the referee. But first off, let's talk about the refereeing performance of Ben O'Keefe. Look, a good refereeing performance. He kept a lid on something that looked early on like it was going to blow out and boil over, but he kept a lid on that, communicated well and clearly with both of the captains. There's going to be the odd call, or there are going to be a couple of calls that are going to be inspected by both sets of fans. Let's be honest, and we'll have to deal with that over social media over the coming couple of days. But overall, I think he had a good game in this one. Then again, I think the referee had a decent game last weekend as well. Brian Nicholson in there saying, "See what happens when the ref is honest." The ref was honest last time as well. Sorry to let you know about that one. The video that we had out, obviously from Razzie, was very much a one-eyed view of that game, and it's a real shame that we did have all that scrutiny on the referee. It made this game extremely slow. Let's be honest. We're coming live probably about 20 minutes after we would normally come live with these shows because the game went on so long in this one. And that was because, the referee was going to make sure that, A, he had something from boiling over, and B, he was going to be very sure about how all the calls went. Look, the teams here, neither team here was going to make the game easy for the referee. Let's be honest, both pushing the line as much as they could, and both also happy to slow the game down with those water boys, etc. as well. But anyway, let's get on to the actual rugby. What rugby there was, and the important piece there is I think that people are going to kind of overlook is how strong the defences from both these teams were in this game. The South Africa made 91% of their tackles, and the British and Irish Lions 94. Just 2 clean breaks by the Lions apparently, and 1 by the Springboks. This really was stifling defence by both teams. Leading the way on that were players like Robbie Henshaw, 11 tackles non-missed, and 14 by Alwyn Jones, non-missed from him as well. Over on the Springboks side, Kitsoff 10 tackles, Mahurba 12. Both of them didn't miss any. Neither did Vice, the number 8, with 14 tackles. Mostert and Khaleesi both, again, 13 and 14 tackles, just 1 missed each. And coming over from South Africa, he did say he would see how the game went before whether he'd join me or not. We have Jacques joining me. How are you doing, sir?
I'm well, Paul. Thanks for having me. And I'm glad I could join you.
And a happy chappy.
I'm very, very happy. I think a lot of South Africans are obviously happy. And what a great third test that awaits us. I mean, jeepers, I think the script writers would have wanted exactly what we have now, 1-1 with 1 test to go. I mean, that's the perfect series, I think.
It's perfect series, technically, from that point of view, yes. From a rugby point of view, there's not been much played by, or much achieved by either side in the opening 2 tests. Let's be honest. It has been very tense, and it's been a real battle from both teams, but a spectacle it has not been. Let's be honest here. In this one, looking at the match stats, running with ball in hand, 138 meters by the South Africa and 112 by the Lions. That is next to nothing, really.
That is actually quite shocking. That's quite shocking, actually, now that you mention it. I mean, look, I mean, I think it depends how you look at it. I agree with you. It hasn't been spectacular, and the running kind of rugby that one would expect. But it just shows you how tightly contested it is, and I almost want to say how evenly the two teams are matched at this stage, because it's no inch given at this stage by nobody. And with all the off-field stuff that's going on, and it really hyped up today's match. I mean, I think if there had to be a crowd today, geez, it would have been 10 times better probably. But I think it really lived up to what I kind of expected it to be. Luckily, not so many. The fights didn't go as far as, or I was actually quite surprised that it boiled over as much as it did. But thankfully, not as badly as it could have gone. So I think there were some very heated moments, but thankfully, it was kind of more handbags than anything else.
It was, but I think this might be partially due to the fact that, look, both these teams are in bubbles at the moment, right? So there's very little outside input. It's all internal. I'll be honest. I think the Razzie interview, or the Razzie video showed that I don't think there's many people in that camp to say no to him at the moment, because I think someone should have stood up and told him that it wasn't such a great idea what he was doing. But I think what also, you can see the way that the team came out, that they were behind him entirely, 100%. In this one, he hasn't lost the change room by any stretch of the imagination. I think they're fully on board with what he's been doing and how he's been going about this. And I think he may have had some of the players a little bit too fired up coming into this game. Mapimpi is the one that sort of sticks out for me here, in that he was doing some great. He was everywhere in that first half. He was doing some great things, but he was also doing some real silly things as well. And he was rocks and diamonds in that first half. He would either get it right or he would get it pretty wrong, giving up 3 penalties as part of that. So yeah, I think the reason it boiled over is that everything has been about this week, about this game, which it always is, but there's been zero distractions the past week to let the players let their hair down and relax. And I think we saw that coming into it, as you say, by it boiling over.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree 100% with you there, but I mean, I suppose it depends where you look, how you're looking, or where you're looking in from. Obviously as a Springbok supporter, I think the players are the same. It's funny. One thing that's been very surprising is the word I want to use. Is I listened to Warren Gatland, for instance, before the match, and he made it quite clear that they didn't watch the video or anything like that, which is very evident. Even when I watched the press conference yesterday with Sia Kulisi and the one assistant coach, Zwandile Stick, they kind of made it clear that no, they never watched the video. But then further into the press conference, it becomes very evident everybody has seen the video. So everybody is much aware of it. Whether they actually watched it in the full hour or not, they know pretty much what was said. That's the bottom line. And I agree with you. I think the whole bubble setup, that creates a lot of tension. The guys aren't allowed to go out as they would have normally done on a tour, do what they do outside of the team environment, go out for a coffee or whatever. They 24/7 basically living with each other, in each other's faces and everything. So, I think it's just got to do with everything. And this week alone, it was obvious that whatever Rassie did in that video, it was going to have a direct impact on the game. I know we don't talk about the refs, and I want to talk about the ref, and I want to talk about him in a very positive way. I think Ben O'Keefe did brilliantly on our show that we do on Thursday night. I actually said that my prediction was the Boks was going to win by 8, and my man of the match would be Ben O'Keefe, and it wasn't in a sarcastic manner. I was honestly saying so, saying that he would have probably one of his best games, because, to be quite frank and honest with you, I don't rate Ben O'Keefe as one of the best international referees at all, for various reasons, which a lot of people have seen before. But you know what? I want to take my hat off to him. I think him and his assistants, they all did brilliantly tonight. And I think that's all that everybody wanted since last week already. So let's hope that it carries on into the third test, because if it does, I think, at the end of the day, whoever wins next week, nobody can really turn around and say this or that. So, yeah, I mean, there were contentions. There's always contentious things that happen in the match. Tonight, again, there happened a few stuff, which we can talk about, but we don't have to. We can I don't mind. But at the end of the day, I think it was a much more balanced game from an officiating point of view. So, yeah, hats off to Ben O'Keefe.
Yeah, and we will obviously the second half will stick in our memories because it's more recent. But we shouldn't forget the first half where the loss of Peter Steph Toy was a big loss for South Africa, and interestingly brought on Quagga Smith to replace him. So effectively playing two open side flankers, which changed the balance of that pack entirely. From having Peter Steph Toy, obviously now a 6, but a converted lock. So effectively going from 3 locks to having 2 open sides is a very different change for that pack. I think that told in that first half, where the scrum and the line out they were fine, but there were a couple of issues there for South Africa. The Lions had more of the territory, more of the possession. That was mainly dictated by how your discipline was, because as I say, no one was making any line breaks or any ground with the ball in hand. So the Lions took a 9-3 lead at halftime by I say edging that first half, but being slightly better in that first half. Your thoughts from that first half?
Yeah, look, I mean, besides all the tussles and stuff that we saw, it was I think it was way more heated in the first half anyway. And then in the second half, I think the guys calmed down a bit more and started focusing on the game a bit more. But the first half, yes, I mean, when Peter Steph went off, I actually told my wife, geez, that's like losing 3 players in one go. And, and replacing it with one guy who's playing, thankfully, Quagga, is naturally more 7 than an 8, and, he's played most of his life in 15s there. Obviously, he's a big 7s player. But, I think, also another guy, hats off to him. I think he came to the party, knew the chips were down, and he had to fill very big boots. On the other hand, Jasper Wiese maybe struggled a little bit, but it would be unfair, to go at him the way that people went after Quagga last weekend, with only being his second test cap and probably his first proper test. No disrespect towards Georgia, but cheapers, we got to compare apples to apples here when we wanna talk about test matches. So I think he didn't do too badly, but thankfully, things worked out, and I think the way that they moved the guys around when they took Jasper off, eventually also worked out nicely. But also another guy that I think Siya Kolisi, jeepers. I mean, I think he played one of his best games according to me, and I'm a very big critic of Siya Kolisi, as a player, not as a person. And when he went off, again, my wife, because she watches with me, I told her, he honestly, nobody can really say anything bad. He honestly had a great game. And, that just tells me one thing. The Boks came to the party, and that's what it was needed. I mean, their backs were against the wall. It was win or lose. It was as easy as that. So, leading from the front, everybody came to the party. I don't think there's really one Bok that one can, focus on and say had a bad game or anything. I mean, obviously, not everybody's going to be a standout 10 player or something. I mean, for instance, I didn't think Andre Pollard, first off, I was very concerned. Again, missed 2 easy kicks. So, it was just very concerning for me seeing his form at the moment. And it's understandable. I mean, that guy hasn't played proper rugby in a very, very long time. But I must say, in the second half, it really came together. You know, that little chip over the top for that first try. Brilliant move from him. Unfortunately, he missed that kick as well. So that was 3 misses in the game. But then after that, he just looked like the old Andre again. You know, it's almost like he finally arrived. So,
well,
I was getting very concerned, actually.
As well,
Sorry?
He was one of the few calm players.
But that is Andre. You know, for some reason, he tends to be calm generally. You know, when we all tend to like lose our heads and stuff, you know, it's always like you want to start screaming at him and say, "Why are you so calm?" You know, but that's the kind of person you need on a field. And I mean, he is the vice captain after all, you know. So to have that kind of leadership is good, you know. And both him and Sia are the calm type. You know, they're not the type of guys that are like in your face, and you know, which is great. But yeah, I mean, listen, to win by 18 points, I think it says a hell of a lot.
Yeah, and one of the turning points, and you talked about, you gave Khaleesi a big shout out, and his tackle on Henshaw, try-saving tackle, was massive from him. I mean, Henshaw, in the old days without TMO, that's a try because he got his. But with the TMO, you can see that Henshaw's wrist is underneath the ball, so he doesn't actually get it down. Try-saving tackle by Khaleesi there. The effort, as you say, they all came to the party. He led like a captain at that point, and that could have been a turning point, or that could have given the Lions a 7-point lead because it was near the post, and unusually.
And it was before halftime. It was before halftime, which could have been quite fatal for the Boks, I think.
Especially as the Lions actually decided to go to the corner that time. They had the option of 3. Just turned it down, went for the corner. One of the few opportunities where that actually happened, perhaps the only opportunity in the game I can think of actually where that happened. And they just came up short.
No, I mean, they were very unlucky. But yeah, hats off to Khaleesi, and like both you and I said, I think that could have been great for the Lions. I mean, I think, you know, our commentators here in South Africa, they actually spoke about it quite in depth at halftime, and most of them were also on the same page, feeling that had the Lions scored that try, it would have been a massive uphill climb for the Boks to come back. And I think, you know what, Paul, if I can just be honest with you, I mean, you know, the more I start to think, you know, back of this whole game, it reminds me a lot of the World Cup final, actually. You know, the way the game went, it was tight. It was quite a big kicking game in the World Cup more than anything else in regards to penalties back and forth, you know, between Owen Farrell and Andre Pollard. But you know, once that so-called dam wall broke, it broke properly. You know, it's very much reflective of that. And I must say, at halftime, I wasn't sure who was really dominating the game. Although I would have, if I had a gun against my head, I would have probably given it to the Lions. You know, I think they just had a slight ascendancy to the Boks. You know, at that stage. But I think that was a big turning point. You know, Khaleesi upholding, you know, that try.
Absolutely. I'm going to bring in one of the Springboks big cheerleaders here with John next. Hi, John. Obviously, you wanted to listen to the post-match interviews, which, well, they don't really say much, but rather than join us, which obviously a poor form, but good to have you on. So what do you think Rassie said at half-time? Because clearly something switched, and he didn't do what he did last week, which was replace his front row at half-time. Which so different tactics there, John.
Yeah, he made a mistake last week. You know, there was a lot of talk around the capability of that starting first the first 3 that started for the Boks in the first test, and they actually showed up as being the dominant 3 in the whole match, right? And their replacement was a bit premature. I think also what happened in this game is that all the strategies for replacements were thrown out by 2 things. One was Steph du Toit's injury and removal. That changed the whole structure of the Springbok line-out. And the second thing was the length of the first half and all the stoppages. So the fact that the game was so slow and had so many stoppages changed the fatigue load on all the players. And I think in the whole ebb and flow of the game, that change in the tide in how it played out. So it was a far less aerobically demanding game than a normal test match. And I think that the Springbok coaching staff, along with a bunch of other things that they got right, they responded better to that change than the Lions did. The Lions were far too rigid, I think, in their approach to the game.
Now, I'm getting told off in the live chat for saying Jax is the coach. Stop saying Razzie. I'm sorry, but Razzie is the coach in everything but name. He does all the public talking.
By the way, I think we must just cut Paul a little bit of slack. You can expect a few chirps from the sideline and a few sort of side swap comments in the next 20 minutes, because basically that's the only thing that he can cling to, because there wasn't anything else in this game that he could possibly take.
Okay, if you want that, then 44 kicks from the Springboks, kicks from hand. Seriously, I know we're not playing football, boys. We're trying to play rugby here. All you did was kick the ball. Anyway, but no, I'm just joking. Just joking. I mean, 44 kicks from South Africa, 29 from hand from the Lions. It was kicking was the only way you actually gained territory in this one, because both defenses were so strong. A really well worked try after half time, though. The way that South Africa used both the full width of the pitch in both directions to create that space for Mapimpi, and the wonderful chip over that Jacques mentioned earlier by Pollard got that try, and that try was even with the misconversion, that try, the fact they actually got a try, whereas all the scores in the first half had been penalties, definitely showed a change in momentum at that point, and showed that the Boks had come out very well at half time. In that kicking duel, Hogg really did not was not good under the high ball this week. Last week, the Lions managed to target Cheslin Colby and isolate him, and that's because it's high balls isn't his strength. He's good, but he's not. That's not why you have him on the pitch. This week, the Springboks Springboks managed to put him in a position or order that backfield so he didn't get isolated, and they really commanded that. Those kicking duels led to 14 turnovers by the Lions. And they just couldn't get territory in that second half because they just couldn't hold on to the ball during kicks, I think is essentially how it kind of went. Jax?
Yeah. Sorry, John.
Go for it.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I think you got it spot on there. That was definitely you could see the change there when with that try and everything and the momentum shifting. But also, I was sitting in the first half wondering, but how are we going to get through here, because it was so tight, and it just felt to me like there was no other option. And then at halftime we were chatting on Twitter about it, and one of the guys that normally chats along, he actually made the suggestion, why don't the Boks just start chipping? And funny enough, both our tries came from, the one was it was a little bit more than a chip, the one from Andre, and then the other one was more a grubber, over the, just between the players. But at the end of the day, it worked. So, I just felt like in the first half, there was almost, it didn't feel like the Boks had something else. It was just forward domination the whole time. We're going to try and make them soft, and hopefully something will open up, and it just never did. And that was my biggest concern going into the second half, because to win the match by penalties alone was going to be very risky, and you were going to have to hope that things go your way, because at the end of the day, both teams were either very what's the word I'm looking for? If someone was ill-disciplined, it was both teams at the same time, and they both behaved at the same time. So it wasn't, and they weren't just giving away penalties freely like you would normally see in a game. Not that I'm saying players give away penalties freely, but in the general sense of the way penalties are given away, it was a little bit more tighter and stuff. So it was good to see that the Boks came out in the second half and suddenly, exploring other opportunities, and it worked, thankfully. So, and then, like I say, at the end of the day, the dam wall sort of broke, and it went back to penalties and stuff, and then it ended up an 18-point win, which is quite big, I think.
Yeah, and Dan Bigger had a chance to close up the gap as well, but hit that post straight afterwards. If that had gone over, then made it would have put the Lions back in the lead and could have changed the complexion. But he missed that one. But as you say, both kickers missed a couple this evening. And then that line out maul, Luke de Jager coming on, giving it 3 proper jumpers. That and it was something like a 22-meter maul that led to that grubber through. Which was very strong. So yeah, the Boks took over that, and then after that more, obviously that saps a lot out the defensive team, and we saw that take impact at the scrum time with a couple of scrum penalties, and that's where the Boks turned the screw by dominating those set pieces.
I would differ with you there, Paul, in that I don't think it was an issue of 3 line-out jumpers. I think it was an issue of change of strategy, because Luke de Jager, when he comes on, calls the lineouts.
Yes.
And I think what happened when they lost Peter Steph du Toit is what people don't realize with the 3, let's call them locks, with Peter Steph du Toit playing at lineout, is that the Boks use locks as lifters. So they reach a height that no other team in world rugby can reach, and they can throw the ball to places that no one else can throw on their own throw in order to get to it. And what happened was, I think there was a little bit of ego ruling the roost among the Boks in the first half. When they lost Peter Steph du Toit, they continued to throw the ball to where Itoje was, even though they didn't have locks to lift or lock height to lift.
Yeah.
When Luke de Jager came on, he just said, we're not going to do that. And he just continued to call the ball to wherever Itoje wasn't. And suddenly Itoje just disappeared from the game. It's like he went AWOL in the second half. You just didn't see him. And they just removed him from the game by stopping him from being a factor. First of all in the lineup, and then he just disappeared in the rest of general play. And that is a strategy issue, and that's the brain of Luke de Jager. And he is a very cunning line-out operative. So he took a first ball, and then he just continued to call it at the front, and call it at the front, and call it at the front. And if you're not going to put a proper pod there to contest, we're just going to take that ball all day long. It's the same as in the second half. There was a change of strategy. Every time the Boks kicked in the first half, the Lions' shepherding of the kick receiver is really smart. So they turn their backs and they run obstruction lines back towards the receiver. So they turn their backs, so they can't be called for obstruction, and they run 3 of them run in sort of like a pincer movement, the 2 outer ones coming together towards. So if you receiving the ball in the camera, they turn their backs towards you and they run like that, and they close the options down for somebody who's chasing straight after the kick. So what happened is the Boks came from the side, so they changed. So they went wide and then attacked the receiver from the side. Once they did that a couple of times, they disturbed these 3 guys, because suddenly they've got somebody coming from the side so suddenly they moved wider, and that opened an inner channel for the chaser to come in and tackle. And suddenly the ball was being knocked on and knocked on and knocked on. So there were some very, at times, subtle changes by the Boks in their strategy. And there's a rule, and you mentioned it with those chips over the top. There's a rule in rugby that always applies. There is always space somewhere.
Yes.
But do you have the skills to achieve it, to manipulate? Because they did work the ball left and right, as you mentioned. They were prepared to run the ball, and the Lions weren't. The Lions weren't prepared to give the ball any air whatsoever except by the boot. And they were prepared to manipulate the defense left and right and then put the ball where the defense wasn't. And we also, just as a last comment, mustn't underestimate how deadly Mapimpi is when it comes to finishing, because that was a pinpoint kick by Pollard, and he, to my mind, was the man of the back. He was superb. But Mapimpi's had a lot of work to do to finish that. And that, I think, is something like 19 tries in 20 tests. He is absolutely world class.
We talked about it earlier before he came on, but I thought he was a bit rocks and diamonds in the first half. I think he was a bit too pumped up for the game and gave away a bunch of penalties where he didn't need to. But yeah, you say, finishes tried very, very well, and was as an ever present. Was all over the pitch in that game. I think the other it's also interesting to see that Farrell came on for bigger from a Lions point of view. He managed to get one kick downfield to the territory kick that I thought that was very good, but didn't manage to do that again. And again, that shows that closing off those options by the backfield, by the box. You say the Lions didn't run it, but stats wise, they actually ran it slightly more, with 81 runs compared to 76 from the box, but less passes, so 83 passes compared to 88, which shows that the box were spreading it more than the Lions.
We're not talking about
running into a brick wall of those
running from the forwards, because a lot of the runs that you see in those stats are forward runs.
Oh yeah.
They're not giving the ball out wide or at least into the midfield. And then if you take a pod up in the midfield, then you draw the wingers left and right have to start making decisions of where they're going to go, which space they're going to cover. So, there was it just was a lack of ambition, a lack of skills. I don't know how the Lions are going to address it, because they across the board, not only were they out-coached and out-thought, but if you were to pick a side from these two teams right now, the Lions share, excuse the pun, would not be from the Lions, right? And I think what you saw is the realities on the last test of the incredible disruption that the Springboks went through in their build-up. It's very. I mean, are you in SA, mate?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I mean, Jacques can give us a better a view of the absolute turmoil that South Africa was experiencing in the 2 weeks leading up to that, both through civil unrest and COVID and resurgence of the disease and the disruption to the camp and the captain and a bunch of players being out for who knows how many days leading up to that test. The fact that the first test was even staged, that we even had a game a week ago, was a bit of a miracle. And I think you see in this second test now a more apparent, it's a more equal reflection of the abilities of the two sides. And there really is a bit of a gulf there.
I'm not sure. I'll agree with you about there being a gulf. I mean, yes, South Africa definitely improved a lot. And last week we were talking about Colby, Mapimpi, LaRue getting like one run each. This time those numbers are up to fours, which shows that they did get the ball out to them much better and use those players, which they didn't do in the first test. And I think we'll see a couple of changes for the Lions. We'll see players like
has to be
Shane Williams coming in, who is much better under the high ball than Hogg, and we'll also have to see. And there needs to be a change of tactics, as you say. It didn't get out past Henshaw, which is, similarly last week it didn't get out past Delende. So there definitely needs to figure out how they get past those players.
But Paul, that was a factor not only of that was a factor of reality. The further the ball goes wide, the more cohesion you need as a team. Because not only do you need the hands that can move it, you need the understanding from all the other players of where they need to be when the ball gets further and further away from the core of the team, where the most numbers of them are. They need to know their roles. So when you are disrupted hugely, you are forced to go to a simpler game plan, because you don't have the time and the amount of just sheer reps to spend with the players to be able to do that kind of play. So I think what you saw the previous week was a reflection of just the realities of how little time they had, the realities that they hadn't played, barring one test against Georgia. They hadn't played, barring that test, they hadn't played since the World Cup final. I mean, we forget the Georgian coach is, I hope he's out of ICU. The second test was cancelled and the Georgian coach was in ICU with, battling for his life with COVID. So, it was just bananas in SA. And that's why I'm just really glad we've even had test matches.
It is, as you say, it's a minor miracle we have got these games actually happening. But I don't think there's. Yes, there was obviously an 18-point gap on the scoreboard, and that South Africa pulled away in that second half. But I do think that these two sides are much more evenly matched than you believe, and I think it'll be. And again, I think the third test could be is a one score either way call. Personally, I don't think you can say that. In my opinion, I don't think there's a strong favourite going into that one. I think it's I think the Test series is very much in the balance after this game.
I agree with you. I think it is in the balance. Who wants it more?
Yeah,
is certainly in it. I don't think you can have anything less than 100% intensity and expect to win next week. It's no walk in the park. But I think if everybody pitches up at their full potential, and if the playing field is level, so that optimum time with the players, reps, everybody on their game, injury, whatever, then the better team is the Springboks. It's just who pitches up on the day with the greater desire.
I think that all the players will desire it. I think it's who's got the better game plan and who manages to execute that game plan, who gets the right balance between the emotion to get the most out of yourself, but also the calmness so you don't go over the top. And it's going to be balancing those sort of things. I think that'll win it. I think a lot comes down to the coaches for this final game and how they emotionally get the players lined up and the game plan that they manage to get them to execute. Well, I need to go back to bed, boys, because it was a very early start. So, Jacques, thank you very much for joining me.
Jacques,
no, it's a pleasure. Yes,
just
John.
A quick question for you, Jacques.
Yes.
Two. How great is it to have a captain like Kulisi?
Well, I mean, you weren't here when I actually said I'm actually one of Kulisi's biggest critics. But when he went off the field, my words to Paul was actually that I told my wife that, you know what, for once I can honestly say that, he really played his part. He came to the party. He was proper. Like I say, I'm a very, very big critic of him as a player, not as a person. And I just felt tonight was one of those nights that he can honestly, if anybody wants to find fault with him, then they must just hit the road, honestly, because I think he led from the front, and I just felt like that is the kind of thing you need, and it clearly shows that the Boks were up for it, and they realized that it was all or nothing, and at least all of them came to the party. I find it very hard to see individual players being called out and said they were bad or anything. Nobody can be a standout player. There's always going to be someone that's a bit lesser, less better than the other one. But to answer your question, Kulisi was brilliant. So well done to him.
He had no price to save that. To save that try, I was like,
definitely. No, definitely. And I mean, it's great for him. It's going to stand him in good stead as well. To come to the party like that, jeepers. I mean, I think a lot of people thought it was a try off the cuff. I thought it was a try, and then when I saw them starting to talk about it, I was like, okay, maybe we had a chance. And when I saw that first replay, I was like, geez, that is awesome.
Unbelievable.
Whatever he did there, well done. But if I can just say one last word, Paul, sorry, I know you want to go to bed, but I must say...
we don't care. We're happy.
No, I mean, it's still 2 or 3 hours before I go to bed. So, but I just wanted to say this in regards to next weekend. I do feel that I think the Boks are going to go into the next game a bit more, I almost said way more, but a bit more confident than the Lions at this stage. And I do also believe that the Lions are going to be, what's the word? Almost, I don't want to say they're going to feel threatened, but I think they know they're going to have to come with a massive game because the Boks basically tasting blood now, in this game is, I just think a lot of people know, the Boks aren't going to back down from this performance. So whatever happens next week, all I know is it's going to be a great, great test, and yet another great one that it's going to be without crowds, unfortunately.
And Paul, my last question for Jacques is Trevor Inyakane. How can you not love him? How can you not
I'm a big fan of Trevor, and I was so worried for him coming on at loose head because I think he's played way more at tight head, although he can play loose head. And you know what? Geez, I mean, after that second or third scrum, I was like, well, whatever, it doesn't even matter. He was, I think, hats off to all the props tonight, Even when Kitshoff came off, he actually looked worried, to be quite honest with you. And that made me worried. And then, like I say, about 3 scrums or so later, I mean, he was doing what he normally does, stealing balls. But from a scrummaging point of view, well done to both Vincent and Trevor. And I mean, Malcolm was just back to his old good self, stealing balls as well. And I mean, well done to that bench, that bench front row. But Trevor's an amazing human being.
And congratulations to Stephen Kitshoff for his 50th Test cap as well.
Yeah.
So
somewhere the beast is going. Oh.
I think the beast is pretty proud of Kitshoff, but especially Trevor tonight.
Cool.
So anyway, but thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me, and I'm glad I could join you.
And look forward to
with a smile
having you next week, depending on if the Springboks win or lose. We'll have to wait and see. And John,
you know what this makes me. You know what this makes me look forward to, boys, is the All Black Springbok tests that are coming.
I actually had the same thought while we were chatting and hearing Paul's thoughts and stuff. I thought, well, maybe we're onto something good later in the year. It's going to be the rugby championship. Rugby championship should be another humdinger for everybody, especially Australia after them, butting their noses into something that's got nothing to do with them. Anyway, we won't talk about the refs. I promised you.
We're going to talk about the refs. Okay, then. Well, let's hope there's no ref videos.
The ref is good. The ref,
give praise on the ref. Don't worry.
He could have speeded it up a lot. He could have told them earlier on to get it going. But I think if he was gonna err on the side of something, he picked the right side to take control, because that thing could have exploded into a brawl many times.
Many times.
Yep. No, absolutely. So thank you, John. Thank you, Jax. And folks, don't forget to join us on Tuesday evening for the Drive and Morph Show at 8 p.m. And then we'll be back after the third test next weekend as well. Oops.